IMF report, like you rightly said, this is not a case of money missing, because I've seen that the thing has gone political and a whole lot of people are commenting on it. What has happened was the government overspent its budget by 8.8 trillion. And eventually, the government has explained that the reason that they've already, because of capital carryover, and also very importantly, that they have subsequently re-enacted the 2024 and 2025 Appropriation Act. The issue that arises from this, so first of all, there's no money missing, but the sheer magnitude of the amount involved. This is not just a kind of adding up. It kind of shows a character whereby you can overspend by 8 trillion, which is about 2% of the GDP. That's a whole lot of money. If you put it in context, that money can do over 2,000 kilometers of roads, or pay 15,000 persons for about 2 years if you are doing a conditional cash transfer to 25,000 naira. So I mean 15 million. So you can see the magnitude. This is really the challenge that the government has, and it has several implications for our macroeconomic situation. Take, for example, the first issue or the verdict is who is telling the truth. To determine where the truth lies, we must distinguish between legality and transparency, or between constitutional and compliance and fiduciary responsibility. The government has a duty at the budget cycle to make sure it puts us a number in. But like every human situation, there's bound to be some overlaps. But for this magnitude, it shows a character issue. It's not an issue of deliberate mistake, but it's a kind of a deliberate exclusion, which has been rectified. And the Honorable Minister has already said that they've taken steps to improve the situation. So we hope the government would take this very seriously. But the government has scored an own goal, because if you are in the market of borrowing, you have to be seen to be transparent. And to say you forgot this magnitude, and if you remember, the June report of the IMF, Article 4, they raised this issue of 2.7 trillion that was not captured by the Accountant General on the capital spending. So if you link that with this, you can see that there's a flow from there to this. And it has several macroeconomic implications. It gave the impression of deficit illusion that it was 4.4 trillion. That was the deficit that was supposed to be dealt with. But now it goes to 6.4. And this is above the West African average, which is put at about 3% of GDP. And secondly, it also increases the cost of borrowing, both for the government and the private sector, because the government now has to look for more money beyond what it initially budgeted for. And this was one of the concerns I expressed, that when you don't account for it at this budgetary stage, you have a situation where the National Assembly don't have sufficient oversight, and there's no coordination between the central bank macro policies on monetary policies and the fiscal policies. So when there's no such coordination, it creates overlaps, and governments continue in the market borrowing. And I can also tell you one secret, that the government and the IMF have been in secret romance since 2023 to 2025. And this romance, they've grown our GDP, GDP from net GDP from 399 in the late 2023 to almost 772% in 2025. So what has really caused this fight? It has to do with the 5 billion UAE loan. That is where the war started. And I encourage all the parties, because everyone is impacted, both at the manufacturing level, agriculture, trade in goods and services. And it's the fintech sector is the least impacted in this situation. But opacity is never good. It's not a currency for someone borrowing.